Hey everyone, welcome back to our podcast. Today we're going to be discussing partner visas. I'm your co-host Arun Baylor, and joining me today is Amitava Deb. Amitava, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Arun. How are you? Good afternoon.
I'm all right. It's been a busy day for me because kids are
Mm-hmm.
home. Term 3 is over. So 2 weeks
Right.
they're going to be home and we have to entertain them.
Yeah, school holidays.
Yeah,
School holidays now in Australia, in New South Wales.
yeah.
I'm traveling.
Oh, you're in India, right? Calcutta right now?
Yes. Right now in Calcutta, I was in Mumbai.
Okay, how's it been so far?
Good, good. I've been busy meeting various clients, prospective clients,
Hmm.
some personal work as well.
You've gone back to India after a year now?
No,
No?
I I come to India frequently. This
Oh,
is my
yeah.
third trip this year.
All right. So last week you mentioned that you have a lot of clients who have questions about partner visas. This keeps coming up
Mm-hmm.
very frequently. So let's
Yes.
dive right in. So let's talk about partner
Okay.
visas. So how many types of partner visas are there?
Mm-hmm. Right. So a lot of people confuse partner visa with a subsequent entrant visa. So if someone is in Australia on a temporary visa, then if they're going to bring their partner, it'll be termed as subsequent entrant visa. A student visa, subsequent entrant, a 491 visa, subsequent entrant, um, then 485 visa, subsequent entrant. So that's a different area. So today's discussion is more about partner visa, which is a PR process. And this is for those who are Australian citizens or permanent residents and are getting married or have a partner. And we'll qualify that later. What a partner means. Does it really mean a married partner, or others can also be considered? So there are a few types of partner visas for those kind of situations. One is partner visa leading to provisional partner visa leading to PR. If someone applies for partner visa offshore, meaning when they are not in Australia, the subclass is 309 leading to 300 after 2 years from the date of application of 309. And if someone is applying onshore, it is subclass 820 leading to subclass 801, 2 years from the date of application.
So you have to wait for two
And
years till you qualify
to be
to
a PR.
be
Well,
to apply for a
yeah.
permanent residency, right?
Well, to be a PR.
To be a
The
PR.
application is done right in the beginning. 2 years later, you need to demonstrate that you are still together. The relationship is still genuine. This is to weed out any marriage of convenience.
So how does one demonstrate that they're still in a relationship with their spouse or their de facto partner? What happens after 2 years? Does the department send out an email saying that
Yes,
now?
1 month before the 2 year anniversary, the department will send an email, and there's a checklist of documentation that is required.
Can we go over some of them as to what they are to prove that we
Yes.
are in a relationship? Because how does the department qualify that one is in a standing and continuing relationship with a spouse
hmm
or a
Yep.
partner?
Yep. So there are four pillars of relationship. One
Okay.
is the legal aspect or the level of commitment. Basically, if you're married, you have a marriage certificate.
Mm-hmm.
The level of commitment, if you're not married, is defined by how long you have been living together. So that particular period has to be 12 months of living together, or one needs to have a domestic relationship registered in the state in which they are residing in Australia. So that's number one, legal aspect. Number two, financial aspect, joint bank account, will, one as a declared as a nominee uh, in their instrument, financial instrument like bank account, superannuation. So those are the financial aspects. So joint property, joint liabilities, these are all financial aspects. Third one is social aspect. Social aspect is how you're recognized as a couple. Do family and friends know you as a couple? Do you go out? Do you are you invited together as a couple? So
So, what would
there's a
they
whole
need
bunch of.
from you, or do they need something from the family members? Will they reach out to them in that
So they'll
case?
not reach out to anyone. They will need certain documentation, statutory declaration from friends, at least two Australian friends, Australian PR or citizenship holders. Then there would be all sorts of other supplementary evidences, like, you are invited together in a birthday party as a couple,
Okay.
photographs together, where you are seen, say, for example, going on a tour, a cruise ship tour with friends, or holiday together, or barbecues together, with with family and friends. So those are the social aspects. And finally, household aspect. How do you share responsibilities inside the house?
What kind of responsibilities
Um,
are we talking about here?
well, who does the cooking? Who does the cleaning? It can go up to that level. And
Ah.
you may write your declaration. It's called statutory declaration, stating how you are taking care of the household responsibilities. They also ask questions like, to find out if it is genuine. They might ring up. There might be interview. So they might ring up the boy and ask, which side of the bed do you sleep in? And then they might ring up the girl and ask the same question. So they have to be aligned.
So, if they interview you, this is in person. So, where do you have to travel to?
No, they will probably call. They'll call.
It's going to be a phone call. Okay.
Hmm. There used to be interviews earlier, but these days it's a phone call.
Now, currently, the cost for this visa, that let's talk about the provisional visa first. If you're offshore, it's subclass 309, or you could be
Mhm.
holding a prospective marriage visa, which is 300, subclass 300. And if you're onshore, it's subclass 820. Now, currently, the cost listed for these two visas is Australian dollars 8,850. Do you have to pay that upfront, or do you get a payment plan?
Yes. So 8,850 is the application charge for 309/100, or for 820/801. Prospective marriage visa is a little different. Maybe we can talk about it a little later.
Okay.
So these two visas, the cost is exactly the same as the prospective marriage visa.
Yes.
But yes, it has to be paid upfront.
Is there any way that someone can put in a request that their application is assessed and they don't have to wait for 2 years? Has it ever happened in your knowledge
Yeah, yeah,
with any of your clients?
it's clearly defined. So if someone is in a long-term relationship, then there is a provision for the case officer to assess if it is genuinely long-term and ongoing. The criteria A is they should have been together for 3 years prior to the application. That is defined as long term. Married or not married, living together for 3 years. If they have been living apart in between, that doesn't really count. Okay,
Okay.
so that's one aspect. The other aspect is if there's a child through that relationship, then
Hmm.
there's a provision for a quicker or an exemption of the waiting period.
So if you have to
So
add somebody
this,
to your application, you do it when you put launch the application itself. Like in this case, you mentioned there's a child.
no, what I meant is a child before the application, not
Okay.
adding a child. Adding
Okay.
a child is a different process.
Okay.
Suppose before the application is done,
Hmm.
they already have a child.
Okay.
So then there's a provision for this application to reach the second stage quickly without having to wait for these 2 years. Yeah.
So, are there any pros and cons of being offshore or onshore when you put in your application for a partner visa?
Yes, of course. If the application is done onshore, then the person has to be in Australia on a particular visa, on any proper visa, and that visa should not have um, no further stay condition on it. In which case, once the applicant applies for the visa, they will be granted, he or she will be granted a bridging visa, which will come into effect after the current substantial visa expires. And that bridging visa has no condition, and it remains in effect until a decision is made on the application that is lodged for the partner visa. On that bridging visa, the applicant, it's bridging visa A, by the way. On that visa, the applicant can work or study unlimited. There's no condition. Additionally, the applicant also is entitled to Medicare when holding bridging visa A. But you must note that when you are on bridging visa A, you cannot leave Australia. So if someone has to leave Australia for whatever period maybe, they have to apply for bridging visa B. And usually that is granted pretty quickly, provided there is a reason for travel.
How is it possible that somebody is eligible for Medicare if they have not even been granted a permanent residency status?
Partner visa application, or most applications made onshore for a permanent visa, the applicant is eligible for Medicare. It is true for even PR, even for 489 visa, even for 491 visa. If someone is applying onshore, before the application is decided, they are all eligible for Medicare.
Oh, I didn't know that. Now, what happens in the event a visa is refused? Is it possible that one can apply for a review of the decision?
Yes, of course.
And how long
That
does
is
that
true
take?
for any visa onshore. Usually there is a review provision, and for partner visa, definitely. There are two types of reviews. The first review is Administrative Appeals Tribunal, and if that is refused, it can go to Migration Review Tribunal. If that is refused, it can go to the minister. But
Okay.
depends on what ground it was refused.
If someone wishes to apply onshore for a partner
Mhm.
visa, do you suggest that they come to Australia on a particular visa, or does it not matter?
If someone is onshore,
If someone is
he's
offshore,
already onshore,
no, if
he's
somebody is
offshore,
of the offshore and they want to come
offshore.
to Australia, and while here they apply for their partner
Yeah,
visa,
so they
is
can come here on a visitor visa, but it's important to note that the purpose of visitor visa is not to come here and get married. So when they apply for the visitor visa, I have many such situations where they apply for the visitor visa, but at that time they do not know they are going to get married. It could be a situation where they know they might get married with someone, but their primary objective is to be in Australia, do some holiday, and maybe meet the person they would like to meet and see if they gel. And then they can eventually fall in love and get married. But if they apply for a visitor visa indicating that they are going to come here to get married, that visitor visa will be refused because there is a different visa for such a situation. If someone is going to come and get married, they must apply for prospective marriage visa. And that visa I always discourage because it then becomes a three-stage visa. You apply for a prospective marriage visa, it takes its own sweet time, maybe 6 months, 9 months, then you come and get married in Australia. After you get married, it is then a two-stage process. Of course, you do not pay the full fees again. You still have to pay certain fees. I can't remember. It's 1200 or
1475
1300.
AUD
1475. Okay, yeah.
1475.
Yeah. Yeah, it used to be
So
1200.
does that mean, if I'm not mistaken, does that mean that from subclass 300 you move over to a subclass 309 and then move to the permanent residency, which is subclass 100? Is that what you're saying?
No, no. So subclass 300 to 820 and 800
Oh,
because it'll be onshore.
okay, understand. Now, what happens if during the 2-year period, if your relationship with your sponsor changes or your spouse partner changes,
Mhm.
then what happens?
If the relationship breaks down,
Are you to notify the government?
the sponsor, the Australian sponsor, that is the
Yes.
terminology used, must notify the government that the relationship has broken down. And then the government then the Department of Home Affairs then will ask the applicant to comment that the relationship has broken down and your sponsor is withdrawing the sponsorship. Please comment, and they give certain number of days. Usually it is 4 weeks, and then after that, if they are satisfied that the relationship has broken down, the visa will be refused and the applicant has to go back if the applicant is in Australia.
That's really hard for someone who actually has a child. That's very little if a situation like that
Now,
happens.
there are several provisions. If somebody has a child, it's a different story, right?
So can they reach out to the government and make an appeal to
Yeah,
let them
of
continue
course.
staying
They
onshore?
can. They can appeal. Or there's a domestic violence provision. Suppose the applicant is subject to domestic violence, and if they prove that their relationship was genuine at the time of application, and then the Australian sponsor became violent, abused the applicant, the physical violence, the evidences are there, then of course it is possible that the visa may not be refused. And even if the visa is refused, there's a provision of appeal and a process for that. So I've done many such cases and they were successful.
Is there also a provision where, in the event the sponsor, who happens to be an Australian citizen or a permanent resident, dies?
Yes,
So
same
what
kind of
happens to
situation.
same situation?
Same situation, one has to prove that at the time of application, the relationship was genuine. If the Australian partner dies before the application, then of course there is no ground for an application. But if the
Mhm.
partner dies, yes, there's a ground for notifying and getting accepted.
If somebody gets married online, would this marriage be accepted by the Department of Home Affairs?
So it's an interesting question. The Department of Home Affairs does not recognize online marriages. However, if the marriage is recognized in the country where the marriage is held and they have a marriage certificate which is valid in that part of the world, then the Department of Home Affairs will accept. Now, there's a difference between online marriages and proxy marriages. Do you understand the difference?
No, I don't know what the difference is.
So, online marriage, of course, is online, it's a method. But proxy marriage is a situation where the person nominates someone to sign on behalf of them. So, in these kind of marriages, we need to prove that both the parties have agreed to the marriage, whether themselves or they have given their approval to that marriage to the person who is acting as a proxy. And if it is done without a physical presence of both parties and solemnized under the law of the country where the marriage is held, then it will be recognized. Currently it's only Utah the state of Utah in the United States, such a um, marriage is recognized. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm
Utah?
not. I never even heard of
Yeah.
proxy marriage.
So I don't know why someone would go, take all the trouble to go to Utah, and you don't really need to be in Utah to do that online marriage. I think it was common during COVID, but nowadays it's quite important that one meets face to face, unless there is a compelling circumstance or a situation why you could not be face to face and had to engage into such a um, ceremony.
Now, in some cultures, you have arranged marriages where the couples who get married have not really spent too much time getting to know each other in the past.
Hmm.
Does the DHA recognize that and accept that as a
Um,
genuine
yeah,
marriage?
but of course, I mean, the many countries arranged marriages are very, very common, but it is important to note that arranged marriages are not forced upon the individuals. If the department has sufficient ground to believe that it was forced due to some cultural or family pressure, then the application may be refused. I had a situation, I came across a situation where the application was refused, where it was an arranged marriage. And finally, after the marriage, the husband and wife did not sit together on the flight to Bali or somewhere. So both sat with family members, but their sitting arrangements were different. So the department realized that perhaps there is no commitment between the husband and wife, and they somehow found out, they used their resources and they found out that the relationship was really forced upon them. So it was refused. Of course, they went on an appeal.
Okay. So, how does the department determine that a marriage is not a marriage of convenience?
Well, they have created a whole um, set of guidelines to help determine through documentation. It's highly based on documentation and individual interviews. They'll be interviewing the groom, they'll be interviewing the bride, and then they will come to a conclusion. Sometimes their conclusion may be incorrect. But if the marriage is genuine, then they will find out and they'll say, yeah, it is all fine.
Is it ever possible that the DHA can come to this conclusion after the provisional visa has been granted? Because they have 2 years until the
Yeah,
permanent residency is granted, right?
yeah. If somebody dobs in saying, there it's a marriage of convenience, then yes. But usually they will give the benefit of doubt to the applicant, so they will not act until the 2-year period has passed and wait for further evidences to be placed. I had a situation, I remember it was in Delhi. It was not arranged. It was an Australian girl and it was a Himachali boy from India. They met, fell in love, and then the boy was interviewed, asked questions. He was asked questions about the girl, the girl's parents, her birthday, and everything, and he just could not answer anything. So then they sent a note saying, please explain how come you are married to this girl, you are in a relationship, yet you do not know about the girl. So in some situations, it could be intimidating for someone to be interviewed who has not been interviewed ever in life. So I made a petition saying, it's quite unfair for someone to just call the groom and then ask certain questions and make a conclusion. So the department can make mistakes because I knew that that particular relationship was genuine.
Was the language barrier also Did it also play a role?
Yeah, well, language barrier, but at the same time, it's not always the language. If someone has never been interviewed,
Hmm.
they will probably feel very intimidated.
That is true.
It's a complex situation. I have come across many, many complicated scenarios.
And help them out successfully.
Mhm. But I would not help someone if I know it is not genuine. I'll probably not take up the case.
But how would you know?
If I know, I said.
Oh, if you know.
If I come to know. My
Understand.
professional ethics says I should not take it up.
So I guess we have touched all the bases for partner visa. We have covered all the important
Mhm.
questions and we have addressed them that your clients have. So if any of you listening, if you find this discussion interesting and if it's addressed all your queries, then please follow our podcast. And in case there have been any questions left unanswered, you can visit our website, try and get in touch with us via email or our phone number listed there. You can get in touch with Amitava on LinkedIn, and the links to the website and Amitava's LinkedIn profile will be in the podcast description. And I guess that's it, Amitava. Right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time. Thank you for joining me from India
Thank
so
you,
late at
Arun.
night. Yeah. Thank you everyone for listening. Thanks for your attention. And see you next week. Goodbye.